Hey everyone, welcome to the Beacon Breakdown. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the latest product from Flowtoys.com, which is the Coral Poi. They sent me these a few weeks ago and I've been putting them through some tests, figuring out what I like, what I don't like. So I'll be covering a lot of things like even how to control them for those of you who've never used Flowtoys before. So some of this information might not appeal to you, and if you want to skip ahead, feel free to do so. At the end of the video, I will leave my final thoughts and a discount code just in case you want to get a set of these for yourself. So let's get started. First off, they're obviously LED. These use the Flowtoys Capsule 2.0. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a pretty amazing piece of technology that has 65 different modes. You can save up to, I believe, 60 favorites. You can build shows based off of your favorites so that your favorites will play back in a specific order and interval. It has 5 different brightness levels, and these are rechargeable, and you can actually update them using the provided braided nylon USB cables. Now, you can't control all these with the click of one button. You can control a lot of props with just one. But if you want, you can actually get the bridge that connects to an app. It's a separate device, and that'll control it all from your phone at that point. Let's see, the thing also has kinetic response. So as you can see, it's blue, but when I do a toss, it recognizes that and it'll turn colors. When I speed it up, it'll turn a different color. So each mode is adjustable in some form or another, whether it's the hue shift or the kinetic response. So these things are pretty amazing. Now the heads are made out of silicone rubber and they have a raised coral pattern on it, so you can definitely feel it. And when I first got these, I was a little disappointed in how slick they were, but after playing with them just for a little bit, they definitely got grippier once your, oils get on them and everything. They are squishy, so you can really just smack yourself really hard and it doesn't hurt. Actually, you can smack them into the ground. They'll bounce right back up into your hand and it doesn't hurt the capsule inside. So that's pretty cool. You can actually take the rope out, and there's these little provided plugs that go in there, and it basically turns these into juggling balls. The handle is a silicone rubber handle that's squishy up top and rigid at the bottom, and then it has a 3D printed knob style profile. Now, a lot of people like that profile. I'm more of a fan of the round knob, but this does have grip to it, so it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I actually kind of like it. The rope is VPC, or it's a version of VPC that Flowtoys made called FPC. Now, VPC is a rope that I've been a big fan of, or different versions of it, for many years. I really like it for various reasons, but one of the main reasons is when you let go of the poi with a toss, the handle is going to end up exactly where you expect it to because the rope stays straight. It acts like a stiff rope, but it's also really flexible, more flexible than VPC actually. So if you're doing tangles and stuff like that, it works a lot better than VPC. Obviously, I suck at tangles. The other thing about FPC is it has the same material for the core and the jacket, unlike VPC. So VPC, if you try to melt it with a lighter to create a cap on the end to adjust your rope length or whatever, it doesn't melt very well. So with this being the same material, it does melt the same, and so it's easy to adjust these for yourself. They sell these in 25-inch lengths, but you can have them made to whatever length you want. I recommend getting your own that's a little bit longer and then cutting it down to length as you go and just melting that cap on there. I have a tutorial on how to do that on my YouTube channel if you want to check that out. The rope does shrink a little bit, probably about an inch overall over time. So I recommend getting a little longer than you normally use, and then just expect it to shrink down a bit. These things do everything I want them to do as far as moves go. That's a test that I use to figure out if I'm going to like a setup, is doing a or a tether trap where the rope, it's flexible enough to grip onto the knob and the knob is grippy enough to catch onto the rope. Same with whip catches, does that just fine. All my tosses that I normally do. Contact works really good. I like usually a little bit heavier knob for doing contact. So for me, I filled this with hot glue. That's how I get some weight in them if I don't have tungsten putty just to slap on there. But let's now get on to how to control these and break them down and all that. All right, so this is everything you get in your package. You'll get a couple of these rubber plugs. These are for turning these into juggling balls so they go where the rope is at. You'll get a couple 3-foot long braided USB cables for charging and updating, and they seem to be pretty nice quality. A couple of these O-rings, and these are important for other reasons. I'll talk about that here in a minute. You'll get some paperwork, a sticker. You'll get a lifetime warranty on these. And now I've been dealing with Flowtoys since the beginning, and although it's rare that I ever have issues, if I ever do, dealing with the warranty is so seamless, and they got the best warranty for LED props on the market as far as I'm concerned. And then last, you'll get one of these manuals, and I'll talk about that next. So this is just a basic startup guide. It's not going to cover everything these things are capable of. If you want more detailed information like, how to build shows or how to do advanced grouping and things like that, I recommend going to YouTube or Flowtoys website, where there's some pretty cool videos on there that cover this stuff in a lot more depth. I'm going to go over just the basic quick start thing and show people who have never used these how to run them. So we'll first start off with turning them on. Press a button and release, and they're on. Press and hold, it'll flash fade, and then it'll turn off and you release. To pair these up, where you can control both of your props or multiple props with one button, it's the same procedure on all props that use this technology. You're going to make sure they're in the off position, and we're going to hold this button for 10 seconds until it turns flashing white. Now, this is flashing green right now, which is actually the way you check your battery levels. So green is fully charged, red is dead, and anything in between is basically a percentage of the charge. So once they start flashing white, you can release. When they turn solid white, that means they're paired up with any other one that is solid white. Now you can navigate to a different page. Now, these have 13 different pages total, and each page is going to be a little bit different. Page 1, 2, and 3 have 10 modes in them each. The 11th mode is actually just a playback of each mode within that page. And we'll just go to page 2 right quick. To do that, hit the button twice quick. 1, 2. And now I'm on page 2. To go to page 3, 1, 2, 3. And now if you want to navigate through the modes on that page, it's just a single click, and each click goes down the page. Now, page 4 is your favorites, and you can save up to 60 different favorites on there. Say I really like this mode and I want to be able to access it really quick, I can save this to page 4. To save, you press and hold, it'll flash, go off, it'll flash, fade off, and then when it turns back on, that means it's saved. So now I'm going to go to page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that same mode's going to be on because now you're in the favorites page, and then you can navigate through your favorites page the same way. Page 5 is your settings. I'll get into that in a second. Page 6 is actually a quick way to get back to page 1. So you could be on page 2 and just scroll all the way to the end, and then it'll turn off, and then when it starts back up, it'll be on page 1. But if you want to get to page 1 quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, 7. Page 7 does the same thing, but you can, I don't know if you can count on page 7 to always be a quick way to get back to page 1, because they might add something to that page in the future. Page 8 and 9 are your show pages, and that's going to be where you can save your favorites in a specific order to play back at a specific time. Page 10, 11, and 12 are just placeholders for future possible modes to be put in. And then page 13 is your bonus page. So there's a lot of like 34 different bonus modes on there. These technically will have, I think, 50 different modes in there, or 34 different modes and then an extra 16 repeat modes. And that's because since these can control the more advanced props like the vision props, those extra modes are actually controlling the extra modes on those vision props. Now I'm going to show you how to adjust these things. Now, each mode has an adjustment of some parameter or another. Some of it's just the effect, some of it's the colors, some of it's the brightness. Some of them have multiple adjustments that can be done. Now, to adjust, I'm going to go to page 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oop, now I'm on 5. Now I'm on page 1. I'm going to scroll down to bold, which is pure white. If I press and hold, it'll flash, and then as soon as it flashes, let off, and it'll be in adjust. And now it's shifting through the different colors that this thing has in this mode. If I find a color I like that, I press the button, and now it's just stopped on that mode. Now, there's something called adjust randomizer, and it basically adjusts the different parameters that the mode has. So I'm going to go back into adjust to be able to activate that. It's going to start shifting through the different colors. And then if I press adjust again, now it's going to make different props be different colors. This is super cool because, you know, if I have a set of poi with the Flowtoys capsule handles on them and I go into adjust, then it's going to have each handle and head being a different color or having a different effect. And that is super rad. Now, I don't know the full details on how this works, but apparently, you know, like this will ship through all the different colors of the rainbow. And then when it goes back to the beginning, it'll actually ship through a different level of colors or a different saturation or whatever. I've seen some of these put out pastel colors. So it's really amazing what these things can do, but it can take a long time for all those shifts to happen. I recommend getting one of these if you want to have full control a lot easier. This is the bridge, and it hooks up to the Flowtoys app. And on that app, you have a lot easier controls of, you know, your colors and your effects. And you can do that all with the slider, so you don't have to wait for them to go through all the different settings. Also, on the newest update, you can upload a song to that app and then build your performance off of that song. And that's going to have your songs, peaks and valleys show up on a waveform. So it'll show you when the beat drops on a song. And so you can have your modes change on that beat. And that is super handy. I haven't really messed with it yet, but that has a lot of potential for some radness. So last thing I'm going to do is show you the settings. Now, the first setting, let's go to page 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to actually show you exactly how a lot of these work, but page 5, mode 1 is grouping. This is advanced grouping. So say you're at a festival and you have a bunch of friends that all want to be on the same mode, and you're passing back and forth to each other, or people's borrowing your props. You can change the modes when you're all grouped together. You can change modes and adjust them and all that, but you don't want somebody to accidentally save a mode to your favorites and mess your favorites up. But when you're grouped like that, it prevents that from happening, which is really handy, because when you leave the group, you want your poi to be the same. Number 2 is your brightness. Now, as you can see, that's flashed 3 times. That's meaning it's at the level 3 of brightness. If I press the button, actually I moved, let me go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go to mode 2, and then I'm going to adjust. And now it flashes once, which means it's starting back down at the first level of brightness, and then the second level, and then the third level. Once I find the brightness that I want, click it, and now I got to save that. So I'm going to press, hold, it'll flash fade off, and then when it's back on, that's saved at level 3. Mode 3 is your white balance. So say you get a different set of poi in a different batch, and one is a little more white than the other one. You can actually adjust them so that they match up. Number 4 is kinetic response. So these have accelerometers in them, and they'll tell when you're doing a toss or spinning slow or fast or whatnot. Say you don't want a mode to change, you can actually turn your kinetic response off, from what I understand, and so it doesn't actually change when you do specific moves. 5 is auto sleep and wake. This is a really neat function. So say you're spinning a lot of different props and you don't want to turn these off each time, you can set them down, and after a minute or whatever interval, it will actually turn off for you. And then it can be in the sleep mode, which means that they're off. And then when you pick them up, then these things will turn on. And that's just a quick way to move back and forth between props and save battery. 6 is a standby setting. Not exactly sure what that does, to be honest. 8 and 9 is a placeholder for future things that they could put in here. 10 is a reset to default. And then 11 is random autoplay. So that means that it will play back all the different modes and all the different pages in a random order. So anyways, I think that covers that. We'll move on to the next thing. So the uni handle or uni handle, I'm not too sure how they pronounce it, has a pattern of 5 dots followed by a line all the way around it. There's a nice squishy feel on the back side, but it's rigid on the front side. The rope, it has a 4x4 pattern, which means there's a bundle of 4 fibers running this way and then 4 running that way, which gives it a nice kind of slick, consistent feel all the way around it. And then when the rope twists, it doesn't create this weird ridge that happens a lot of times on the 2x2 pattern ropes. So I really appreciate that. The coral pattern is this all the way around the poi, including on the button here, which I think is pretty cool. To get the capsule out, instead of doing this like you do with other poi, just pinch the rope back here in the head and then push out like that. Cap comes off pretty easily. I usually do this to get the O-ring off, but you got to be kind of careful. You can use your fingernail to get underneath it to pull it back. This is the juggling ball adapter. Put that in there, put the cap on, and it slides into place like that. Now, the rope pull back here is around 11.5 millimeters wide, so you could put a thicker rope in there, but the hole on the capsule is 10 millimeters wide, so you'd have to use a Dremel or something to make that hole bigger if you're putting a bigger rope. I definitely recommend using a Dremel versus trying to cut it out with a knife or something, because otherwise you might have sharp edges and it'll fray your rope. The capsule has a coral poi pattern all the way around it, which I think is pretty cool. It's clear compared to the more frosted versions of the V1 and the V2. Not too sure if that helps with the light dispersion or not, but it definitely looks cool. Now the dimensions are different than these other two capsules, so if you already have a pod mod set up and you're getting these for it, you might have to modify your poi for that. This V3 is 21.3 millimeters wide. The V2 is around the same, but the V1 is 22.5. V1 is 90 millimeters long, 95-ish on the V2, and 88 on the V3. Something really cool about this is on the older style. Let's see if I can pop this off here. Say you had a pod mod that used the 95 millimeter heads. A lot of times you take this part off right here, and then you have to fit the cap between the battery and this little lip, and it means you have to really push this battery against it. And if you have the wires inside here, it can get pinched between the battery and the board, which means you really have to be careful or have a really thin cap. Well, they fixed that by putting a plastic wall on the back side of the battery, and it's attached to the case, which is awesome because now you have a 5.8 millimeter gap in there. So there's plenty of room to add some extra thickness to your cap. You could probably technically add a little bit of weight in there if you used a tungsten putty or a washer, but you're going to be kind of limited in the space. Now on the head, this is kind of neat too. This has a sleeve that goes all the way through it, much like the Emoja or whatever they call them heads. So that sleeve goes all the way through, which keeps dirt from getting inside the head, which is nice. So I've noticed two issues with these. First of all, if you drop these and you drop them just right and the rope is facing down, I've had the capsule push out a little bit. Now usually that's not an issue because once you start spinning them, they'll pull right back into place. But one time out of all the times that I dropped them, I had this pop out and it must have caught the cap or whatever and knocked it off. So I tried putting a little bit of tape around this to create more of a friction in here, and it did seem to help a little bit. I don't know if it's 100% solved though. I guess you probably could put another layer of tape around it to build it up or whatever, or use a more grippy tape. I used a slick, clear tape on mine. If you are going to try the tape option, put it on the battery side of the capsule, just because halfway down on the head inside here are these little protrusions that stick out that grip onto the side of the capsule. So if you do it up here, it won't do anything. Plus, it'll hit the LED. So I'm curious what other people have come up with to solve this issue. The next issue is the buttons are a little too easy to push, in my opinion. I've had it happen when I'm spinning these in the off position, sometimes drop just like that and they'll turn on. I've actually had the modes change a couple times when doing like head taps with the other head, and it hits the button area just right. Now, it might not be that big of an issue for some people, but I like to have a little firmer button to push. So I figured out a quick, easy fix. They'll come with a couple of these O-rings which go around the groove down here to hold your capsule together. But if you stick that O-ring around the button right there, now you have a harder button to push. So with this one, without the O-ring, you can just use the pad of your finger to change it. With this one, you can press it real hard and it won't change. So you have to turn your finger like that and it will change just fine. So I really like that option. If you think it's a little too hard to push because the hole is too small, you can probably get a slightly bigger O-ring, and then you can customize exactly how easy these are to push. So what do I think about them? Well, I normally use a 28.5-inch long setup, and I forgot to tell them what length to send me, and they sent me these at 25, and I'm not used to this length at all, but to be honest, I'm really digging having this as an option to spin, because I'm able to do much more techie stuff than I can do with my longer setup, and they're lighter, so they're not hurting my shoulders like my long poi do when I do really fast moves, which I can do with these. Now, these are so much better than the original LED head that they had. This was the Flow Moja, I believe they called it, head, and I made no secret about it. I hated these things. They were too short at 90 millimeters, which means the capsule stuck out the top, unlike this. It has a really plasticky feel to it. You could see the seam really easy when it got dirty, where this, you really can't. And the worst part about it, besides them being also too light, is the light inside of it. You could see way too easy. You'd see a hot spot, where this, the whole ball lights up and it makes it look much brighter. So huge improvement. Now, will this be my #1 setup? No, probably not, just because I have a much more customized set. I use a thicker version of this rope that's stiffer. As I said earlier, I use a different style knob. And I also add a lot more weight in my head than most people do. Most people like this weight, but I add like tungsten weight to mine, which I can't as much in this. And I do that for like my heavier handles, especially if I'm using the Flowtoys handle, because it's longer and everything. It has more weight. I like a 5-to-1 ratio or somewhere around there. I also like having a little bit of consistency between my LED setup and my daytime practice setup. I want to switch back and forth and not feel the difference, but this is just my personal preference. Don't let my preferences turn you off from this, because this is a great option. At $165, you really can't beat it. It's good to go straight out the box, and it's got great components to it. It is squishy, as I said before. So normally when I'm at a show, kid will come up to me that's never spun poi before and ask me to spin them. And I really hate handing my heavier set off, because I'll feel like they might hurt themselves. With these, I have no fear of that at all. Also, if I'm doing partner poi, I'm going to hand this off to the partner so that I don't get hurt when they hit me. But yeah, if you want to get a set of these for yourself, you can use my discount code. It's Poi Mechanic. It's all one word. It's all capitalized. I'll leave it up here somewhere. You can use that at flowtoys.com. If you have any comments or questions, leave it in the comment section below, and I appreciate y'all watching. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.